lot of fireworks really close to the crowd.
Hey everybody, we're Stephanie and Darren. Thanks so much for stopping by our channel. If you're new here, our channel is focused mostly on travel-related things, and we've got some great series out there. If you watch any of those and you like them, we'd really appreciate you subscribing to our channel. Today, we are talking about our very first visit to a European Christmas market.
Now, I've had dreams of visiting a Christmas market for years. I'm somebody who loves Christmas. I mean, I start celebrating in early November, and if people would let me, I would go through the first couple months of the next year.
It's February and we still have some lights up in the house.
Anyway, I've had a dream of going to a European Christmas market. Usually we travel to Europe in the summer or spring or fall, but not really winter.
So in 2019, we took our standard summer European trip. We actually went to Albania and a couple other countries in the Balkans for 2 weeks. But anyway, we got this great flight deal to Slovenia over Thanksgiving time. And Slovenia being one of our favorite countries, we couldn't pass it up, so we booked it and headed back to Europe for a second trip last year.
So Thanksgiving is right around the time that European Christmas markets open for the season. So we thought not only will we travel in the off season to Slovenia, we can also catch some Christmas markets in the area. And one of the Christmas markets that was only a couple hours away was in Zagreb. Now, Zagreb is a Christmas market that's been gaining a lot of steam. It was recognized as the best European Christmas market for 3 years in a row. Now, the reason that Zagreb was voted the best Christmas market for 3 years in a row is that it seems like the entire city gets involved in the Christmas markets. So here's 5 things we learned from visiting our first ever Christmas market.
Okay, so the first thing we learned is that you need to decide if you like people and use that to time your visit. We went on opening weekend and the crowds were incredible. We are people who probably lean towards introverted for the most part, and so crowds can give us a little bit of anxiety, and I've got to be honest, we were a little on edge on that opening night. There were just people everywhere.
Now, doing some research on the Zagreb Christmas market, I learned that since they were recognized as the best Christmas market, they've had a 40% increase in tourism, which I felt like you could really feel on opening night. There were a lot of people who were in on the secret of it being the best. Now, opening night comes with some pros and cons. There are a lot of exciting things that happen on opening night. There was an ice skating performance, there was fireworks. That was a lot of fireworks really close to the crowd. But a pretty cool opening.
It was definitely sensory overload. I've never seen fireworks quite like the opening night fireworks, and we were far too close for my comfort to where they were going off. I was pretty sure my clothes were going to end up with holes burned in them from the sparks from the fireworks.
Opening night had an incredible energy, but there are actually events going on throughout the entire Christmas season. So if you're not somebody who likes crowds everywhere, you could go on another night and still experience a lot of great events and not have to deal with the onslaught of all the crowds.
The second thing we learned about the Zagreb Christmas market is probably one of the cooler things, and that it is definitely designed for the locals and for Croatians.
It felt like we were joining the largest family reunion of people from Zagreb and maybe people from all across Croatia. Now, that seems like a simple thing to remember, that the Zagreb Christmas market would be for the people in Zagreb. But a lot of places can sometimes feel touristy, like they're there for the tourists, and that was not the case in this event. As being Americans, I always hate that we do not have a grasp of many languages. I only really speak English. And a lot of the signs at the Zagreb Christmas market were in Croatian and not so many in English.
We do know a little bit of Croatian. Dobar dan, hvala. We've practiced the basic words. But yes, like Steph said, we were a little shocked that being as touristy or as popular as the Zagreb Christmas market is, that there weren't many signs in English, and a lot of the booth operators didn't speak a whole lot of English. So ordering food and understanding where to go and what to do at certain times of day was a little difficult for us. And, I think we should say we don't expect things to be in English in other countries. It just exploited our lack of bilingual skills.
One of the great things about traveling is forcing yourself out of your comfort zone and to practice new languages. And the Christmas market would have been a great place to do that, except for opening night was really crowded and there was a lot of yelling. Wasn't the best place to try to navigate that. So just remember that you're going into a Christmas market that is designed for the people that are there, and be prepared to be patient, to ask for help when you need it, and just have fun being lost.
And if you get stuck in the Swiss raclette line behind a little Croatian grandma who wants her cheese and you don't understand how to order, you might want to just get out of the way and let her get past you.
It was a pretty intense line to get this ooey gooey cheese that is warm and bubbly on potatoes. But here, let's give it a try. It's pretty good. It was worth the fight to get the cheese.
The third thing we learned about the Zagreb Christmas market is that you should definitely get out during daylight hours and explore the different market areas to make your plan for later at night.
You can also get a map from the tourist office or download a map on your phone and kind of use that to get around. But having the daylight definitely helps. A lot of the stalls are already open during the day, so then you can already pick out exactly what you want to eat and, taste test some of the items you want to get more of later on in the evening. Now, one way that we were able to kind of explore the city and get situated with all the different Christmas market zones was to do a Rick Steves walking tour. We had our book and we just kind of followed around from the lower New Town all the way to the upper Old Town, and it gave us a great insight into the city. Our first big stop here on our self-guided walking tour is the funicular. Now, this funicular dates back to the 19th century and costs 5 kuna for a ride. It's only supposedly 55 seconds, although it seemed shorter than that.
Yeah, if you've never used Rick Steves' books, they're an invaluable resource for us. They've really felt like they've given us access to Europe in a way we probably never had before. We typically buy his paperback books for every trip that we go on, and they're usually pretty cheap, $13 to $15.
Zagreb as a city is already a little confusing to navigate. It once was 2 cities that later merged into 1 city, and then there's a new town and an old town, a lower town and an upper town. Doing the walking tour gave us the ability to go through all the different Christmas market zones and get a snapshot of what they might look like later on that night.
Yeah, it's a really walkable city, though. I mean, we covered most of the downtown area in, a couple hours, probably. And that was in the midst of the afternoon Christmas market crowd, which wasn't near as crowded as the nighttime crowd. The fourth thing we learned about the Zagreb Christmas market is that Zagreb itself is a city worth exploring and probably needs more than just one night to check it out.
Zagreb is often missed for some of the cities on the coast like Dubrovnik, and when we went to visit Croatia a few years ago, we actually flew into Zagreb, got in our car, and drove to the coast and never really came back to explore the city. We actually really enjoyed our time in Zagreb, and we only stayed for 1 night, and it wasn't enough time to really get a feel for the city. The walking tour took us back through all the history, but when you're planning to eat all the food at the Christmas market, you end up missing out on all of the great cuisine that's in the city.
So yeah, I think we'd recommend spending your first night at the market, eating up all the traditional fare, the sausages, the germ noodle.
So our second food stop is for a giant dumpling that is called germ noodle. We'll have to look it up. And we're not exactly sure what was on it. It looked like a giant bread roll, so let's see what's inside. I do think it's a berry. It's delicious either way. Definitely recommend.
But then dedicate your second night or additional nights to taking in the food scene around modern-day Zagreb. There are a lot of great bites that we were sad to miss out on, and we hope to go back someday to try some of those out.
Zagreb is also a cheaper capital than some of the Western European capitals, so we were able to stay in downtown for not an extravagant price, even during the opening weekend of the Christmas market. Traveling in late November and early December is also not a bad time to see this area. While you do lose some daylight because the sun sets sooner and it's a little bit colder outside, we were able to go across Croatia and Slovenia and not really run across a lot of people. We went up in the mountains and it really felt like we had the entire Julian Alps to ourselves. Now, we had already been to Croatia before and we didn't schedule a whole bunch of time to explore, but I think it would be an amazing time to go visit maybe Plitvice National Park or other Croatian attractions and not have to deal with the tourists. So if you dedicate a few nights to Zagreb, you'll have time to explore the Christmas markets a couple times, explore the local cuisine, and explore the area without too many tourists around.
Last but not least, the final thing we learned is that you should check out more than one Christmas market in your time in Europe. We intended to visit 3 markets on this trip, but fortunately we lucked into seeing 4. We got delayed in Paris on our way home and got to check out a large Paris market, which was also incredible. But each of these markets have their own feel, their own food scene, and their own crowd, and all are worth visiting for their own reasons.
Zagreb was designed to be the highlight of our Christmas market trip. That was everything that we threw planning into. But almost every little town and city had their own Christmas market. And so it was fun to just see what the food was. And there was actually quite a bit of diversity in between markets.
Yeah, I think that was the thing I was shocked by most. I expected the food to be sausage, and across all the markets, but they were very different. And maybe there were sausages at each market, but they all kind of had their own types, and then their one-off type foods that you didn't see at the others.
Zagreb was great for the fact that it did have the traditional, I would say maybe alpine food of sausage and sauerkraut, but then it had areas that were very international, and then some things that were predominantly just in Croatia. Now, when we went to Ljubljana, the food kind of changed more into the traditional Balkans fare. Zagreb had the energy and the feel of being a major attraction. Ljubljana, on the other hand, felt more laid back. And then we also went to Bled, which was very sleepy lakeside. And each one of those markets was fantastic in their very own way.
The Balkan region is one of our favorite regions anyway, and we've loved it during summertime, but it kind of took on a whole new feel during the fall. It's just one more reason that makes us want to go back to that region over and over and over again. It just kind of continues to compound upon itself.
So to wrap things up, Christmas market season is definitely worth exploring. It's not exactly like we expected it to be, but it was still a lot of fun. Until the US gets on board with the Christmas market idea, we will have to continue to collect credit card miles and look for cheap flight deals to get us back to Europe to eat some more delicious food.
So I think that wraps it up for this video. We've got some exciting travel plans in the works for 2020 that we can't wait to show you, and we can't wait to experience ourselves. This is a trip that's been on our list for a long time. Stay tuned for the next series. We hope this video helped you out, and if it did, we'd really appreciate you hitting that like button down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe and hit the bell and set notifications to all. Is that what it is now? So you can see every time that we post something new. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.